Don't talk yourself out of doing things before you have the chance to see if you can do them. Because I think that is our tendency. Like with medicine, especially, we were sort of drilled to be like, you have to be perfect or you can't do it at all. You can probably do it. And it just takes a little bit of like that exploration. And like you mentioned it, the skills that we already have of wanting to learn, wanting to improve ourselves, and just knowing that you can achieve some of these things with practice, just like any other skill.
You are listening to the Pinnacle podcast, where we empower women in medicine through education, community, and actionable strategies for both the practice and the business of medicine.
Medicine is a lifelong career, and continuing education is crucial for professional development. Pinnacle is the first and only multi-specialty organization dedicated to addressing the challenges that all women in healthcare face.
Welcome to Pinnacle, the elite professional community providing education for women in medicine. At Pinnacle, we challenge you to pave your own path by helping you develop the skills needed to not only stay in medicine, but to excel. Welcome to the Pinnacle Prescription Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rupa Wong, and today I am joined by Dr. Karen Tang for From Social Media to Practice, How Becoming a Digital Health Educator Changed My Career Path. Dr. Tang is a board-certified gynecologist and minimally invasive gynecologic surgeon. She is an internationally recognized leader in reproductive health and social media, and she reaches millions of viewers across the world each month with her educational videos about period health, pelvic pain, gender-affirming healthcare, and reproductive rights. She's also been featured in the Washington Post, Yahoo Lifestyle, Self Magazine, Philadelphia Magazine, NBC.com, and NPR. Welcome, Dr. Tang. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. This is so exciting. I can't wait to chat.
We were talking before we even started recording, and there were so many pearls, and I said, darn, I should have pressed record. Should have pressed record 20 minutes ago when we just had this very natural conversation.
We were just like chatting, yeah.
We were just chatting, but that's what I want for the episode as well. I want people to just hear these conversations that come about when people like us are just discussing our career paths, where we are, and our goals. So first, let's just start with your journey. Tell us about how you went from academics to employed, private practice, to now your own practice, just that journey and the role that social media played in that for you.
Yeah, it was wild. I will tell people, when I think about when I finished my training and I was starting my practice in academics, and I was like, I'm just going to be straight academics. I'm going to do like a fellowship. I could start a fellowship. And I really had a certain thought about how my life and my practice would go. And it's completely changed, largely because of social media, and how unexpected that all was. And so, I was somebody who was very nervous about anything unknown. I was very nervous about even the idea of private practice because I didn't know anything about the running of a business, about like starting a medical practice. I had no thought about social media at the time. In fact, I tell people this all the time. I didn't do any social media before 2019. I had no Twitter. I had no Instagram, nothing.
Me neither.
So nothing at all. And I would just maybe post pictures of my dog or my baby, but no thought of it using it professionally. Mm-hmm. And I started because of Dr. Jessica Shepard, who both of us know. She's a Pinnacle favorite, who told me once at a conference, this is actually where patients get their information. That is where they vet doctors. So things had really changed in the world. And I think a lot of us in medicine didn't realize that. So I started in social media, mostly on Instagram at the time, just to build my practice, to kind of get myself out there professionally so that patients would know that I existed and maybe come see me as a doctor. I really had no idea that it was going to be something that I would actually do, as part of my profession. But it started to to catch on. I think talking about reproductive health, it's something that is there's such a black hole in terms of information that people go to social media to learn about stuff that perhaps like it may be more comfortable for them in the privacy of their home than perhaps like asking their doctor or even friends and family, like some of these things about, periods and sexual health and, like vaginas is, it can feel like, embarrassing to ask about. So, it's something that they can get that information from Facebook, from YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, in an entertaining and lighthearted way. So the videos started catching on, and it became a tool of networking. So we were talking before we started recording about my book. So I have a book coming out in May called It's Not Hysteria. It's literally a guide to like everything in gynecologic health. And I had always thought about writing a book, but I had no idea how books got made, honestly. Like I truly had no clue how the publishing industry worked. And someone who was a literary agent reached out to me through Instagram DM, was just like, I think your content would make a great book. And that took me on a path of learning about the publishing world. I got an amazing agent, and, she presented my book to all these big 5 publishers. I have a big 5 book deal. I have a UK book deal. So that was absolutely incredible. And I've connected with journalists, with different industries, like through social media, just through creating a reputation as a topic expert. And people kind of started reaching out. And then finally, kind of circling back to the medical practice, I just started my own private practice, like solo practice. I never thought I would do that in a million years, but social media helped to, create my professional reputation. It's something where people now know who I am and they would come to see me. It gave me that freedom to be able to go out on my own and know that, hopefully, knock on wood, I just started it, but hopefully that it would succeed. I think that it gave me that confidence that I wouldn't have otherwise. So it really did kind of transform my career in a lot of different ways.
Okay, so much to unpack with what you said.
Yeah,
so I'm going
to talk about.
A lot to talk about. So first, I want to talk. The very first thing that you discussed was the fear of private practice, which I also felt, because I think we are, those of us in medicine, many times we're exposed to only the academic world. And that's the only world we know, right? Through medical school, through residency, it's in the hospital system, being an employee. That's it. That's what you're exposed to. That's what you understand. So it feels familiar and it feels safe. So when you switch, what was the impetus for switching from academics to private practice and then to making the big jump of becoming your own boss?
Yeah. And I think anyone who's listening who is a physician, who works in medicine, knows a lot of the problems with our healthcare system. So at each sort of like type of practice, it has its own problems. So academics, I came across a lot of the politics and the feeling like, my voice really wasn't being heard as a young woman, like early professional, part of my career, kind of getting lost in the shuffle and feeling like, we were getting a lot of the responsibilities kind of put upon us, but without the associated improvement in, like leadership and a voice in terms of making change. And I switched to private practice, being employed, just to kind of escape that a little bit. And then obviously private practice being an employee has its own pressures of productivity, like fighting with insurance companies for reimbursement and RVUs. And especially in women's health, like the reimbursement is just so bad. It's really quite terrible. Like my specialty is pelvic pain. Those patients need a lot of time, a lot of attention, and the reimbursement just doesn't fit that. So, I moved now to solo practice so I could be out of network and have a little bit more control over how I practice, again, how much time I allot to be able to see a patient and give them the attention they deserve, and to be able to control my schedule. A lot of the beauties of private practice are being able to be your own boss and, determining like the culture of the practice, your hours. I can now, if I need to schedule time to go into New York to shoot a video or to do something else professionally, like I can do that because I control my schedule. So it has been quite a process of finding that right fit for me. I've really tried, I joke, I've tried every type of medical practice.
Me too.
And kind of found the pluses and minuses of each one. And I think that happens to a lot of us in medicine. Like we do we all, not all, but almost all of us started academics because we're scared and we don't know anything else besides academics. And then we sort of like find our place. And so, anybody out there who's sort of early in your career and feeling intimidated, like, well, I guess this is all I can do. And sometimes people feel really trapped in that. Like they feel like they don't have any alternatives because they don't feel comfortable pivoting to some of these other lesser known practice types. If I can do it, anyone can do it. Truly, I went from like zero knowledge to, educating myself. This is actually something that I gained a lot from Pinnacle and from other, Pinnacle women who are farther ahead in the practice world, who were very generous in sharing about their own path and just saying like, well, if you could do all the other things that you've done, you can learn to open a practice. Like it's something that you just learn and you just get that knowledge from other people who have done it. And people have been so generous with like, yeah, mentoring and sharing and encouraging. And I think that's how you do it. Like you really get that community to give you that support and fill in the knowledge gaps.
Absolutely. And I think medicine tees us up for success in a lot of ways because we are lifelong learners. And this is just learning something different, but learning something nonetheless. All right. So the other thing I wanted to circle back to, you made it sound very easy with, I started social media in 2019 and the videos just went
Great
viral.
Success,
and,
yeah.
and there you go. Boom, 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 done. Yeah. And we know that's not what it was. No, but I think you were also very intentional, which I think is very important for listeners to hear about the topics that you posted. You were really keyed in. You knew what you wanted to be your niche because it was your practice niche, perhaps, and you were extending that into the social media. But just talk more about how you got on the platforms. Did you start just by doing everything on the platforms and then figured it out? How did you arrive to the, I don't want to say the like the templates that you have now?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Because we truly are always learning. And like you just said, it's never that we are like, bam, we like started doing something and it was like perfect. It's always about like the trial and error and seeing what's working for you and what doesn't. And that was definitely the case with social media. I knew nothing at all. Like I literally had to have like young people teach me how to literally use Instagram and TikTok, like open the app and like, this is the button you push and this is what a story is and this is how you edit it. As I had no idea. And in terms of kind of like the format, it was very trial and error. I think I started with some of these like trying to do stuff that I'd seen other people do and just realizing it really wasn't going anywhere. For instance, with Instagram, I started when it was still like very like a photo based platform. I took some pretty pictures of mountains and flowers and like put it up there and they really went nowhere because like people were like, what the hell is this picture of a mountain? I had kind of heard anecdotally that things did better when you had your picture in it or, when you showed yourself and a little bit about your life and your personality. And that was very unnatural for me. I'm a very private person, despite all of the social media stuff. Like I am much a introvert. My tendency is to want to just kind of keep to myself. So it was very hard actually to kind of put myself out there initially. Instagram's where I started. But then when I did, I was like, oh, crap, it does actually do better when you're on there. And I think it is because, and I think that's just human nature. Like people want to connect with a human being. Like they, it's hard to connect with a picture of a mountain, but if they see like a person who they feel a connection to, if it's funny, if it's educational, if it's engaging, like they're more likely to kind of want to comment and to share, which is just kind of how things work with the algorithms. So I realized that I had to kind of put myself out there a little bit more, like beyond my comfort zone. And TikTok was way out of my comfort zone. I was never going to do TikTok. I thought it was like where like the kids danced and did whatever trend crazy stuff. And a couple of people who we knew through social media, like Austin Chang and Jennifer Lincoln, had gone on to TikTok and had huge success. And just talking about just like things that are basic things. Like it wasn't that they were like, like the most groundbreaking research or like anything. It was just like talking about basic stuff. And I saw how much of a need there was. Like, Jen's videos are so awesome. And like literally like people were just like so excited to get like, how do you put in a tampon? Like, is this normal in terms of sex? Is this like normal in terms of my period? And just sort of seeing that there was that need out there. I was like, I can do that. And something I've always liked is teaching. So, from the very beginning, like when I was a resident, I loved to teach and explain stuff. So that was sort of where I can kind of see that I could fill a role on social media. It was just to break stuff down and explain things in a way that may be helpful to understand. So that's what I did. And that's what seemed to really do well. And it's all about like kind of seeing what is a good natural fit for you and is, authentic to you and is sustainable. So if you're trying to do something that just feels super uncomfortable, you're never going to keep it up. Social media is all about sustainability and being able to kind of, be there on a consistent basis. And if I was trying to do something like being like analyzing the hard hitting data, like I would never be able to keep that up. Like, honestly, I just wouldn't be able to do that. There are people who do, and they do a great job. But I knew that wasn't me. And I like doing kind of the entertaining take on the current events, especially like I'll see if there's like, like a celebrity mentions something about like, endometriosis or PCOS or fertility issues. It's interesting for me. I love like pop culture. I subscribe to People magazine. Like I'm on like TikTok looking at the pop culture stuff too. So it was just a good fit that I thought this was fun. It was a way I could combine something that was kind of entertaining and something educational. So bam, that's how it kind of came about. But, we give the pleasing illusion of like, oh, it just happens super quickly and naturally is like not the case. Like we do a lot of like trial and error, like things that just totally flop and go nowhere. And then, to move to try something different maybe. And sometimes like you do the exact same thing and one day it flops and one day it does great. And you just feel like, okay, it's totally random and kind of roll with it. So that was its own like learning point with social media, is like not to get discouraged when I put like an hour into a video and it went absolutely nowhere. Because the next time like you do like a super quick off the cuff like nothing video and it does really well and who knows. So just kind of like rolling with the punches a little bit was kind of a necessary lesson to learn.
Absolutely. And I think that also then speaks to what you said. It's something that you need to sustain, because if you give up after the one that flops, then you might not make the 8-second video that goes viral and gets you all the media coverage, right?
Absolutely. And you never know. You truly never know. Yeah.
You absolutely never know. Now, did you think about it earlier when you were starting on Instagram and now your larger platform, correct me if I'm wrong, is TikTok? Did you think
it has some more followers? I will say Instagram is still the most like engaged. Like I think it's more of a community there. So that's why I like it on Instagram better. TikTok is it's like the lottery. It's sort of like you could like strike it big or like you could get absolutely nothing most of the other times that you play. So I kind of think of like that. I actually use just like kind of technical point, I use TikTok as the video editing software because it's the best one. It's the easiest to use. It has all these cool like effects and green screens and like music and all this cool stuff. And then I just cross post it everywhere. So again, just kind of like writing those lottery tickets and just seeing what goes big. And truly I tell people like, you never know what's going to be popular. Like some of the most popular videos I've had have been about like the most random topics. Like recently it was decidual casts, which is just like when you have a period, instead of it coming out like little bits, it comes out all in one piece. And it went wild, like on like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. It was like 10 million views. It was like, it just somehow struck a nerve with people. I don't know why. And so never kind of talk yourself out of things. Like sometimes people will be like, oh, maybe we were talking about like, different like topics with ophthalmology and like, well, I don't know if anybody would be interested in this. Just make the video, like just make the post. Cause there probably is an audience out there and you just don't realize it. And if you talk yourself out of it, then you'll never know. So might as well throw it out into the world and see what happens.
I love that. And I think sometimes we're just so in it. We're so in our specialty that so many things just say, well, everybody knows that. And that's so common sense. Right. So that's not going to be interesting to people. And in reality, like you said, I mean, I didn't even know what decidual casts were. I remember this video that you made. And I wouldn't have known that. So I would have found that.
And that's, like people talk themselves out of it because they're like, oh, but like, this is just like kind of a common thing. And like, why would anybody be interested? So again, I'll tell you, some of the biggest videos have been about the most random things. Like, so for instance, like rectal pain with periods. I was like, okay, but so many people have that and they don't know what it is. And they're like, it's kind of scary. And it's kind of, again, it's not something that you're going to go to your doctor necessarily and be like, what is this? But if you see it, scrolling through social media, and like thousands of other people have had the same issue. They're like, oh, like this is actually a common thing. And so there's so many of those things that as a doctor, I'd be like, oh, why really would anybody be super interested in this? But they are. If you have even like for a second thought that something was kind of interesting or curious, I'm sure lots of other people out there have had the same thought and would be interested too. So you never know. And again, there's different audiences. Like some people are, wanting like, funny and like really lighthearted, and other people want like hard hitting and really deep dive. So there's an audience out there for pretty much everyone. I'll just say that.
I love that. And I think that that's really important because you have done so much good, so much benefit for people that probably are too scared or think that it's silly and they don't want to bother their doctor about this. But in reality, they're so worried about these things that are happening to their body without the education that you're delivering. They would continue to worry. So it's really amazing what you can do. But how has that then translated to patients for you? Which of your platforms has brought in the most patients? That probably, I think you kind of alluded to it, that it helped you make that jump and giving you the confidence. But I want to hear the nitty gritty on this.
Yeah. So I was kind of shocked. Like recently, I would say like 2/3 of my patients come to me finding me from social media. And that's through a combination of things. One source that was very unexpected, but in the course of, Roe v. Wade being repealed and Dobbs, and a lot of people were looking for tubal ligations, for sterilizations, but facing a lot of resistance from OBGYNs, like especially if they were child-free, if they were unmarried. It's crazy to say that in the year like 2023, 2024, that would be the case, but it was outrageous how many patients traveled to see me because their own doctor locally had said, well, but you're unmarried and your future husband might want to have kids. Or like, you don't have kids, you're going to change your mind. I'm not going to do this for you. And I'm like, you're like a legal adult. I had women who were in their 40s who had been told that. 40s. I was like, or women who had children. I had like 33-year-old women or whatever who had like multiple children who were like told like, well, but you might change your mind. So, there are actually groups online for people who are child-free who maintain surgeon lists. Like there's a child-free Reddit that has 1.5 million members, and they have a list of literally by geographic area doctors who both gynecologists and urologists who will do sterilizations for people who are child-free. And people traveled from all over the place, like many different states. Like there were days after Dobbs that I got like 50 calls a day from those lists, which was insane. My staff was going crazy. They're like, Dr. Tang, this is too much. Like we are going crazy.
we didn't prepare for
I know.
this.
I had never, I've always been part of like small practices. And I was like, this is like a lot. And then a woman on TikTok and Instagram, she goes by like Paging Dr. Fran, made her own list, and that went viral, and people were finding me through that list as well. There are endometriosis lists of, specialists, again, kind of compiled by support groups so that they, make it easier for people to find specialists. So there is a lot of that, where these sort of like patient created lists for certain niches of doctors that people have had difficulty finding specialists who would, take them seriously, know how to kind of manage their issue, especially if they felt like they were being kind of dismissed by their own doctor. So there was a lot of that. It wasn't even necessarily people finding me through my own platforms, though there were, plenty of people who did that, but people who are finding me through these other created communities of patients. So, more and more, I think that's important for other doctors to know about. Again, I didn't even realize before social media that they existed, but there are these sort of, not like underground, but they are these communities that we as doctors don't realize oftentimes exist. And they're talking to each other. They're giving each other information about, which doctor really listened, were really kind to them, really took them seriously, made a difference for their health. So that's now a lot of patients find their doctors this way. So it's important to kind of know that it's out there and try and, if you can tap into them. Like I put myself on the child-free Reddit list. I like contacted them. I was like, put me on there. So you can like kind of search them out and maybe like kind of present yourself. And it's, when we talk about as practice owners and things like that, how to market ourselves, and people are spending thousands of dollars, like trying to, get marketing and paying for ads. Like you can do this for free. Like you can, find these communities, like reach out to them, connect with them. And then you get all these patients and it's quite amazing. So that has been really incredible to see that. And, also like things like the book and the social media, like they're basically calling cards. Yeah, I'll talk about the book. Yeah. But each of those things is like a little bit of a calling card for you out into the world that kind of makes your brand, your knowledge, your expertise. And that's for all sorts of things, for finding you as a doctor, for finding you as a speaker or a consultant or things like that. So there's all these different, again, like kind of not side gigs, but basically like different like professional avenues that you can do to like kind of expand your influence. So
I totally agree. I almost think it's like, even if my YouTube channel or whatever channel is not huge, it's almost like a digital resume, right? As to what you're doing, your services you offer, how hopeful you are as a person and as a doctor, so that patients can kind of get a little bit of a sense of you, which is amazing. But tell me about your book.
Comfortable. Yeah, the book.
Yes.
Yes. But the book is super exciting. Yeah, yes. It does. Exactly. Yeah. So the book, like I said, is called It's Not Hysteria, Everything You Need to Know About Your Reproductive Health, But We're Never Told. And so we're sort of saying it's kind of like Our Bodies, Ourselves, except for, updated for our current age. It has chapters on literally everything. People are like, oh, is this in the book? I'm like, yes, it's in the book. So there's chapters on problems like endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS, PMDD, vulvovaginal stuff, bladder stuff, pelvic floor, sexual health, birth control, hysterectomies, like everything. So, and there's also chapters on like how to assess your own symptoms. A lot of times questions that I get on social media and from patients is this normal? A lot of times it's hard to even tell, like, is what someone's going through, is this abnormal? Is this something I should be concerned about? So I have a chapter on kind of just assessing what you're feeling and what it might mean. And then a chapter on like advocating for yourself and, how to find care if you're having difficulty getting someone to listen. And I have a chapter on like history, because I just like history. And I thought it's very interesting to kind of see how we got to this point with women's health. And, just kind of going over like all the crazy stuff with the ancient Greeks and witch hunts and like hysteria and Freud. So it was really fun writing it. It was a lot of work. I wrote it while I was working full time, which was quite insane. This is where you need the whole village. My husband took a lot of nights and weekends with the kids, and I went off to a hotel and wrote my book. Yeah, it was a lot. But it was very interesting seeing the publishing industry and, the whole process of how a book is acquired by a publisher, like what makes them decide to buy a book. Like how they promote it and the different ways that we as authors can help promote it, going on things like podcasts to get the word out there. And it was quite fascinating. It's really neat to learn about a different industry. And I always kind of say we all have a book in us in some way, whether it's, a professional book about your area of expertise, or like a lot of people are doing like memoirs now where they kind of explain what about their life has been really interesting. And, perhaps you accomplish something really unique. There's another woman doctor who I know through Facebook groups of women physicians that she was on some expedition to Mount Everest as like as a medic. And she wrote about that. I was like, that's amazing. So, it's been really exciting. And I really hope that with the book that we get word out there about, reproductive health, that we make it a little bit less taboo to talk about. It's been very exciting in social media to see people saying, oh, I bought it for my daughters, or I bought it for my sisters, my friends. And I was like, oh, it's so exciting. Like people are going to hopefully talk about these things that like are typically nowadays thought of as kind of like embarrassing or taboo. I'm like, it shouldn't be embarrassing. It should be something you can talk about with your friends or get care for, just like any other medical thing. My husband, I use this example. My husband just injured his hip. And it's like, he can tell people, he could be like, I injured my hip, I have to go to physical therapy. But if people are having like pain with sex or, like period problems, like they feel so reluctant to kind of share that. They're like, oh, I'm not going to like tell my coworkers I have period problems or pain with sex and I have to go to physical therapy for pelvic floor. But it's the same thing. It's pelvic physical therapy, and it's getting care for like muscular issues or these other medical problems. But somehow, women's health has this sort of like pall of you should keep it quiet. You shouldn't complain about it. Or if you do, that's just like lady stuff. Like, so I really want the book to be part of like a movement to get this word out there. So it's very exciting because it is a way to reach an audience that I haven't been able to reach through social media. Where like people who don't do TikTok or YouTube or any of that, like may go to their bookstore and need this information. So it's really exciting for me. I'm nervous, but excited. With the practice, and the book coming out basically at the same time, I kind of joke they could either be great successes or huge disasters. And my what's it called? Imposter syndrome is totally on overdrive right now, but it is very exciting. I'm really thankful to have all these opportunities. And honestly, I know it's all from social media that these opportunities came about.
So. Well, I know that it's going to be great successes that you're experiencing because you're a curious person, you're a lifelong learner, and you just dive deep into everything with that natural curiosity. So how can the product not be amazing?
I love that. Thank you.
My 2 cents.
This is So I love this. Women supporting women.
Yes,
like you can do it. Yes,
you can.
I appreciate that.
You can. I know it's going to be amazing. So to close, what's one Pinnacle pearl that you would like to share with our audience?
So kind of like we said throughout the episode, like, don't be scared. Don't talk yourself out of doing things before you have the chance to see if you can do them. Because I think that is our tendency. Like with medicine, especially, we were sort of drilled to be like, you have to be perfect or you can't do it at all. You can probably do it. And it just takes a little bit of like that exploration. And like you mentioned the skills that we already have of wanting to learn, wanting to improve ourselves, and just knowing that you can achieve some of these things with practice, just like any other skill. Like if you learn to do surgery, if you learn to, be an ICU doctor or like to do all these amazing things that so many of us have done, like you can do some of these other professional things as well. Like don't talk yourself out of it and have that confidence in yourself, reach out to other people to give you some of that knowledge if you don't have it already. And just kind of do what you need to do to achieve some of these dreams. Like don't psych yourself out before you have a chance to try.
I love it. That's such a great way to end the episode. Karen, where can everybody find you? Can you share?
Yay. That? So you can find me all over the place. So all of the social media handles are Karen Tang MD, KarenTang MD for simplicity. So mostly on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and also my website, KarenTangMD.com has links to pretty much everything. And then for my practice, it's ThriveGYN.com. So Thrive Gynecology. I'm outside of Philadelphia. If anybody needs a pelvic pain specialist, GYN, GYN surgeon, that's me. And the book is, like I said, coming out May 7th. Anywhere books are sold, basically, you can order it. If you Google, It's Not Hysteria book, the landing page for Macmillan has links to like buy it everywhere. You can just request it from your local bookstore and library. That's amazing. So I love supporting local bookstores and libraries. So just ask for it there. And thank you so much. We're excited to see you guys all out there in the world. So
thank you so much, Karen, for sharing all this wonderful knowledge. And I cannot wait to see all of your success.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Pinnacle podcast, where we strive to elevate the voices of women in medicine and inspire excellence across the healthcare landscape. Until next time, keep reaching for your pinnacle.